Okay, thanks. I'm taking here over. So I'm Eric again from UIRR. So thanks for both Rolands. I think to have a bit more a better overview on the bridge and what we are doing. So the first part is really about the state of the art to know a bit more. I think what they are currently needs are and requirements. And the second aspect is more about the processes that are actually, I think, performed by the different stakeholders and where maybe the gaps are and where the gaps can be covered by a digital transformation of those processes. So here we have a lot of stakeholders. So we have then the main, of course, is road rail, and we are and also the maritime. But at the end, we need really, I think, to combine, I think, all the requirements and the needs of a door-to-door perspective. That's the reason why we are today, I think, discussing with you and to have then now an open discussion. What we propose is to start maybe a light interactive section with some questions. So I will ask here now, Matthew, I think, yeah, if I hope that you know this tool called Mentimeter. So there are two ways to join, or via the browser. You type in so menti.com. There should be then a window, and then you have to enter the code, and then we can start the question. Or you are using your smartphone and you are somehow scanning this QR code, and then immediately you will be put on the first page. Yeah. So yeah. So I see the top. So I hope that all the people that are attending will join this Mentimeter survey. That's a really very simple question to answer. So let's wait until that we are at least, yeah, maybe I see that we have 38 today around here, the workshop table. So I think, Matusz, we will reach maybe 20 or something like that. We can then start.
Yeah, Eric, I also shared the link into the chat. So if you are not going with the phone, you can just click with your computer.
Thanks a lot, Giuseppe, for that. Yeah. Okay, let's wait some additional. So we slowly reach 20. So don't be shy. That's completely anonymous. So there is no problem. I think that we are not going to blame one or the other. So that's not the idea here. So we are 20. So that should be a very simple question to answer. What is your dominant role in the supply chain? So you have the choice between consignor, LSP, rail undertaking authority, terminal operator, service provider, CTO, and then infrastructure manager. Interesting to see that for the moment, most of them are others. This would be interesting to know exactly then the role that you have. So if I see, well, we have a lot of people that are not completely part of the chain. So that is a very interesting first feedback, because when I see the number is more than 11%, so it means 81% of the responsible are not completely part of the chain. Yeah. So I'm still waiting for the last answer. I see that 16 have answered. We need 4 more. Maybe if some of those that have selected others, I would be interesting to have maybe in the chat, or you can maybe express yourself, because I would like to understand which other role you have then in the supply chain. Okay, I think Mateusz, you can then switch to the next one. So is the general service quality of your suppliers using road rail combined transport sufficiently high? So excellent, good, sufficient, below expectation, far below expectation, or not applicable? I would expect indeed, I think with the first question that a lot of people will certainly then put then not applicable.
And for those who remember my presentation, this is exactly the question that we posed in the initial survey as well. So we will see if this group has similar expectations and experiences or not.
Okay, I have the impression this the magic number today is 16 because that's the number that is for the moment responding to the survey. So okay, we have one here company that said is a good quality. We have several, I think, attendance here that says is sufficient, and then we have a majority, I think, that is not applicable. Okay, let's then switch to the next question. Now it's a very direct question that's key for any predictive analysis, maintenance, and also then AA technology. So how satisfied are you with the data quality that you might receive from your supply chain partners in the combined transport? So Roland, the next time we will remove not applicable. we
Many
are
text
going.
fields, yes.
Yeah. I must confess that I was not expecting that. Because you have to understand that's not really helping us in our research and study. Okay, it seems that it's going in the direction that we had also in the general survey, that it's below expectation with 31%, and then we have here 50% that also says far below completing modes. So that's exactly what Roland says, that we are going to compare what we have collected so far. Yeah. And then we have the large majority that's not applicable. And I saw one remark on the chat. Yes, okay, I see that's research centers indeed. Okay, so you may learn, I think, from our survey, I think, for your research, but that was not the idea here behind our project. But thanks for, of course, for joining. And Sergio, many thanks for joining if you have to leave. Okay, I'm waiting for the magic number. Yeah, my colleague is looking at me. Okay, let's go. So I think here, how important is increasing the volume of relevant data exchange with your supply chain partners? So that's very important aspect in digitalization, because data exchange and also storing the data has a huge impact on the digital costs. And so when I'm looking at the pricing asked by Amazon for the cloud, depending on the volumes, you can switch from one system to the other. It can be very expensive. So it's very important, I think, to understand if you see an increasing volume. That here is going more.
Yeah, and just to add, the question is mainly focusing on, do you see gaps that need to be closed in order to make your operations more effective from from an information collection point of view? And as we can see, yes, this is confirming that most companies would assess there is a need for more of the relevant information. And none of the respondents said so far there's no need to improve that. So yes, then it's also confirming our current results.
Okay, I think we have to move to the next question because I can understand indeed. I think that for those that are not part of the supply chain, they cannot really reply to that. Yeah. So let's go to the fifth question then. So we are going more into the function. So which process are most relevant to be performed fully digital with your CTI supplies in 2030? So that we are speaking about timetable exchange. So that was part of the first presentation done by PTV about the timetables. We have capacity reservation, which is different from booking. We have the forecasting, sorry, it's a bit small, forecasting, the tracking, tracing, digital document exchange, exception management, claim management, and invoicing. Of course, we have multiple choices, so that's why you have the possibility to select more.
And fully digitally performed means that a human might be overseeing it and being informed, but at least the documentation and the execution is then more than 95% with digital means.
So here we have a clear winner. It's the tracking tracing without really surprise, and quite equally the timetable exchange, the capacity reservation, and the booking. And less important, the document exchange, and then we have forecasting and claim management.
Yeah, don't forget we limited the number of choices. So.
Yeah, but it seems that a majority took, I think, this 1, 2, 3, so the first 3 ones, that is completely equal. But okay, that's a clear here winning, I think, with tracking and tracing. To be clear, in which indeed tracking and tracing will be one of the important elements, including also because that's even if this is zero, this prevention management and exception management, that's also part of which. And then we have to leave certain out capacity reservation. That's really, I think, for example, the slots that we have to reserve for the train pass. So that will be not part of bridge. Booking and rebooking is certainly an aspect that we have to address, because in the TSI telematic, that's an open point. How could we develop a European booking system for intermodal freight transport? So that's certainly a question that we have to address in bridge. And timetable is definitely an important. So here we have to make it very clear that there are 2 ways. So one is what we call the commercial timetable. That's very important for you as a customer to understand what are the commercial timetables, so meaning what are the frequencies and the hours between two points. But then also for the operation, we call it the operational timetable, where the rail undertakings and infrastructure managers are combining their operation requirements, and that's also something that we need for the operation of the combined transport trains. Okay, let's switch, I think, to nearly final one. How do you foresee the data exchange with CT supply stakeholders in 2030? So here you can select 2. So here is to see where do you see the evolution. You see bilateral data exchange will remain relevant, so more than 30% of data exchange. Standard API-based communication will be dominant with more than 75% of this. Then we have message-based on based communication will remain relevant. Then you have the final one with the no. I'm not surprised that for the moment not applicable is for the moment leading. So we have nearly 22% for everyone except for the message-based communication.
Yeah, it's a little bit a look in the glass bowl on purpose. So not everybody knows what will happen in 2030. But
I have my ball here, Roland. I have it.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Just based on your current assessment of where the future will bring us in 5 years.
So to clear in bridge is exactly what, exactly. This is our attempt to go from a bilateral data exchange to go to a more platform-based exchange, so with messages, and certainly based on API. So that's certainly the trend that we see, and that also something that we will put into the demonstrator. Okay. I think, Matthew, that was the last question, if I remember well.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. So thanks a lot for those that have replied to that. So first of all, it's now to open the discussion. So we have already then raised a certain number of questions that are directly relevant here for our project. Now the floor is a bit open. So you can put and then you address any question that you might have on the project or any comments or remark that you would like to address. I see that there are some researchers here also that you have certainly some recommendation. You have maybe done some research as well on IT services. So let us know. And so let's share. We have of course then also question to you, but now normally I would expect some reaction from your side. I don't know how Giuseppe is working. Is only with chat or is also voice that you open the microphone
Also,
for the audience?
also voice is working, so
Okay.
people can also use the microphone.
So it's the same. Sorry, I'm not here an expert of GoToMeeting.
Maybe I can ask you yeah, you made a lot of questions related to the future. Maybe what is your vision on this interoperability framework, and what is the situation? How did you answer to these questions?
Maybe I can start and also then my colleagues can react. So I will take the example of the terminals. We are representing officially the terminals. So there are more and more requirements on the terminals to exchange data. And so that's the requirements towards directly the users of the terminals, but also then to the service provider. So if you want to make them interoperable, then it must be very clear which kind of data they should send. So for example, in the TSI telematic, it's quite clear. In other regulation, it's quite open, or it's to be done. I will take the example. We have a register of infrastructure for the railway part. The terminals are invited to share the data. For the moment, we don't know exactly. So we have different regulation with high expectation of the terminals. But if you want them to make it interoperable, let's try, and that's a bit the concept that we have to have this minimum viable set of data that the terminals know I have to be ready for all this piece of legislation, and then I can be ready with this data. If they are asking always different data with different standards, with different ways, it will be quite difficult to say that we have a digital ecosystem with a full interoperability. So here we are requesting and we are coming with recommendation for the terminals to be aligned. So we are discussing with the Commission, we are discussing with the Railway Agency in order to be sure, I think, that those data will be interoperable. And the key requirements of the terminal say, I would like to send it once, this data, and then you can, of course, distribute this data among the supply chain. But once it's sent, and not to create, I think, always this peer-to-peer connection. We need a peer-to digital platform, and the digital platform should somehow distribute the information to the other stakeholders. That's a bit the principle of this TSI telematic, that you have one common web user interface, that you send those data, and this web interface should then distribute the data to the others. And if you are not interested, you don't use the data. If you are interested, you use that. That's as easy as that. Yeah. I don't know if my colleagues would like to add
maybe
something.
maybe it's not always a web interface, but yes, the idea should be that the data can be shared once everybody understands fully what needs to be done, and then we need services in an ecosystem that can deliver that. So it's not the future for, especially for SME terminals, to invest hundreds of thousands in IT, because this needs to be a better aligned system in terms of standards should be clear, what information should be shared must be clearer, and then it's one interface and not 20 to establish, because that takes a lot of time, a lot of costs, and a lot of maintenance, and that's not what they should be focusing on. And likewise on the customer side, once we have all terminals and CTOs leveled on the same minimum service quality and data quality, then customers also better have a trust into the railroad system, that this is the minimum data that they will receive and they can build on. Because what do you hear also from customers, that it's really stopping them from using rail if they know we are losing the track of our goods. So yes, track and trace is the start. Then we need obviously forecasting. The air freight is much further down the line of maturity, but there are some movements towards that, and we need to make sure that everybody gets on a higher level of digitalization capabilities, and interoperability of standards need to mature as well.
I see a question from Jan Tore. Jan Tore, you can also use your microphone if you wish.
So I was just asking, there are obviously different classes of stakeholders here. Mm-hmm. There are those who are required to interact to make sure that rail operations are efficient. And there are those who are only concerned with the movement of cargo. And how are you distinguishing these? Because I think they are very different, with very different needs.
Eric, do you want?
Okay, I will take now, because you mentioned first. Hello, Jan Tore. I hope you are you're well. Yes, indeed.
Yes,
so there is a there is a big difference, I think, about the needs of a rail undertakings and combined transport operators compared to the requirements certainly of the customers. I will take an example. A rail undertaking is really highly interesting for the operation to have a real-time status of the train point by point between the infrastructure manager's point. So, but we as a CT operators, I don't care if the train is between 2 points. What I'm interested is to have an information that was Roland said about prediction, to say the forecast of the train at the end of the exit point of the network, that I can make also a prediction when the train will arrive at the terminus. And the customers, for example, is a bit different. The movement of cargo, to my knowledge, they are not interested in a real-time evolution of the trains, but at the end, they would like to say where the cargo will arrive at which time, to send maybe the LSP or the transport holders to the terminal to say, look, now the cargo is ready to be then put on my truck and to go to the final destination. So here we have a difference, I think, on the quantity of data that you need. The railway needs a lot of data, I think, to be really efficient infrastructure management as well, because that's a relationship in both directions. If there's a problem on infrastructure, they should send the data during the rail undertaking. If the rail undertaking, so we know there's a large quantity exchange between them. Now, a CT operator doesn't need that, but for the moment, we receive all this data. So it means that we are receiving every day millions of messages, and then we have to create a algorithms, I think, to extract really the data that we need for our operations. We should maybe make it a bit differently because the quantity of data that we received, and I'm speaking really about TSI telematic, it's millions of messages that you receive. It's a huge burden, I think, because you have to do a lot of filter. And certainly, I'm quite sure that the customers are not willing to receive all this TSI message, for example, because they don't know what to do with that. So we have to be some filtering and to make it very clear, I think, and to make filters, I think, to correspond to the needs of the customers. That's why we need to understand much more, I think, what they need.
Yeah, with one add-on, obviously, if everything runs roughly within plan, that is not needed. But if an exception happens that really is of high risk to not meet the handover points, then obviously customers would also be interested, and that's in the exception process that also is relevant. So both together needs to be more configured to the needs of the other stakeholders in the supply chain. And this is one of the tasks that Bridge wants to shed some light into it. What is really relevant and what might not be so relevant, and what is not shared at all because it's critical or seen as competitive or for safety reasons not wise to share it. So this then should also be left out.
I do one more, Giuseppe.
Yeah.
Couple of comments. I have been working in projects for information exchange in multimodal transport for 30 years. And I would very much like to make sure that at least you are covering and taking up most of the things that have been in these before, including the things from the DTLF of the Commission, with project like Phoenix and Federated, and also the so-called common framework activities that were done and probably culminated with the project iCargo in about 2015. In addition to that, when we look at procedures and processes, I think it's very important here that we also are taking into account the development of the physical internet. Again, trying to ask the questions, are the roles and the relationships and the responsibilities that we currently have in the ongoing situation, what we will expect in 5 years? My perception is that it will not be that way. Responsibilities will change from freight forwarders to nodes in the network, meaning terminals, to a quite large degree, and the decision about how to move cargo will be more and more be taken there. That is my interpretation of the physical internet idea. And how will that impact the developments that you are doing, if at all?
Thanks for this remark. We're obviously looking at the other projects and their results and try to find out how far they got and what implications it will have for our picture of the future. And we also need to balance that with where the stakeholders are at the moment and what they can develop to in the next 2 to 3 years as we run the demonstrators. And then obviously the outlook will be then also to 2030, and then we will see what we learn in the next coming years, what is possible and what is desirable. And somewhere in between, we will need to put our roadmap to.
The physical internet concept is indeed, I think, focusing on the nodes. We see some evolution, I think, in our here environment, that some terminal operators indeed are becoming combined transport operators, because they see that they have also then a better overview of what's going on, and they transform themselves as from a transshipment entity to an organization of services. That's not, I can say, maybe 10% of our member companies are going in this direction. As I already mentioned, there's a lot of expectation from the terminals to exchange data. So there must be a reason for that. That's for the logistic part, but also for the railway part. So they have an important role indeed to play in the physical internet, but in general, I think for the operation. Yeah. But it means also that if you want to perform better the terminal operation, we need also data coming from the LSPs or the shippers, because also we see the trend that more and more terminals are requesting a kind of slot allocation. So at which time a trucking company will arrive to the terminals. Here we have also data message that is possible. So we have mentioned EDI and JET. So there's a message that is available, and we will try in the bridge project, I think, to convince, I think, some of the customers to start exchanging those information with the terminal operators and combined transport operators, because it will help, I think, a lot. And we have seen in the maritime business, because that's an obligation to enter the terminal if you are having a kind of booking. So we are going to do this exactly, I think, also for the continental terminals.